And now we are going to back to that demographic point. What is, I start talking on the third page of the handout. You may not be aware of it on a daily basis, but we are all going through a demographic transition. And it's by far the most moving power in our world, that demographic transition. And I'll explain that. At the start of a demographic transition, we are investing in better health systems. And you saw that family shelling beans in 1957, very large family, and that was the first generation of children who took a lot of gains from improved healthcare. Tuberculosis, for example, was in the 50s already declining because of investments in public healthcare. In the 30s, there was still a lot of people, young people, killed by tuberculosis. So in the 50s, healthcare was already improving quite fast. And so much more children remained alive. Better childcare, more food certainty. So in 1870, a family got 8 children, and of those 8 children, 2 survived. And after coming off clean water, and after improving healthcare, you still got 8 children, but 6 of them survived in 1910, 1920. So what do you get? You get a population explosion. So first you get a population explosion because of better systems. But then the birth rate starts lowering. It's getting lower and lower and lower and lower. Why? Well, you want 2 children. And formerly, your grandparents needed to have 8 children, 8 births, to have 2 grown-up children later in life. And it takes some time to digest that. And it takes some time before the birth rate is lowering. And there are 3 driving factors. The first one is, you might be a little surprised, the first one is not healthcare, the first one is urbanization. You see another phenomenon in our world, people tend to live in the cities. And birth rates are dropping very fast as soon as people start living in cities. It has something to do with the disappearance of social control. Social control, women to women, mothers-in-law to their daughters-in-law. Social control and traditions disappear as soon as people migrate to the cities. So that's a very decisive factor in dropping birth rate. The second one is education. For a long time already, educating especially girls is an effective way of declining birth rate. And the third one is political. Women's rights, reproductive rights of women. And what is the result? The result of urbanization, education and women's rights, the result is a declining birth rate, and after a few decades, a fast aging population. Fewer children, and let's have a look at this fourth page to see some figures. So what did I do? I took the fertility rate 1960 in a selection of countries, and the fertility rate 1960 and in 2015. And we define a fertility rate of 2.1 as subsistence level. When every woman gets average 2.1 child, the population has a long time stability. Why 2.1? Why 0.1? Because not all babies survive till they are adults. So you need some extra. Every woman should have 2 childbirths and 1.1 0.1 extra for those children who don't grow up. And 2.1. If you have 2.1, you have for a series of generations, you have a stable population. And we see our own country, the Netherlands, 1960, still 3.10. So a high fertility, high population growth. 2015, we dropped below subsistence level, 1.73. So the first decade you don't notice that. The first decade you don't notice that. You only notice we need less facilities for small children. But after 3 decades you notice already, hey, where are all the young workers? We have a lot of age workers, but where are the young workers? So we get 1.73 child per woman in the Netherlands. And we are still growing. We don't grow because our previous generation were so large. No, that was too long ago. We grow only because we get migrants. That's the only reason why we have a growing population. We have migrants. And the funny thing is that migrants take over the birth rate of their guest country very fast. So we're used to large Moroccan families, Turkish families, and within 2 generations, the birth rates in Turkish and Moroccan communities is not higher anymore as in Dutch groups. So having immigrants is only for some time a solution. It's not a way of raising the fertility. It's just for some time, for a few decades. It's a solution. Sweden was already a stable population, 1960, and is incredibly stable right now. Belgium, the same, was already a stable country. Poland, with a large drop. Poland is a shrinking country. The population there is in decline. And we can talk about politics, but we now have a populist government in Poland who is concerned of the fertility rate. They try to raise larger families because they see the population in decline. All right? I think the best thing for them to do is making it an agreeable country for young people. And what is happening now, young people don't like the political climate in the country and flee to Western Europe, to liberal democracies. So, and there are more countries. We can talk about Russia, we can talk about Hungary, we can talk about China, which are doing the same. We come back to that in just a moment. Germany, United States, until shortly the United States was a very child-friendly country, and now you see also the United States has a fertility rate below subsistence level. And then come the surprises. Bangladesh. We all have pictures of Bangladesh as an overcrowded delta in South Asia. And 6.62 children in 1960. And see what happens. They are a little above subsistence level. They will reach subsistence level within a few years. So that's an enormous change in just 2 generations. One of the poorest countries in the world. And see what's happening. And see what is happening in Brazil in the same time. 6.05 to below subsistence level. And see what happened to Iran. Huge countries with an incredible fast decline of their fertility rate. So what's happened to the world? We think of ourselves of an aging country. Well, what is happening in a few decades' time in those huge countries? In Brazil, in Iran, in Bangladesh. What's happening in China? South Africa, almost on subsistence level. And then, in a short time, India will be the largest country in the world. And you see we decline 5.90 till 2.44. And also India, in a few years' time, will have a fertility rate on subsistence level. Taiwan. Microphone is coming to you.
Art, I was just curious, looking at these figures, I think that The 2.1 child per woman replacement level is probably an average. Couldn't it be higher for Bangladesh? Maybe they're already in decline. So Bangladesh now has a fertility rate of 2.22. I would maybe guess that their replacement level is a bit higher because mortality rates for children might be higher than in other countries. So couldn't they already be in decline, perhaps?
Bangladesh in decline?
Yes?
I don't think so, because difficult to explain without making an infographic. You have very large generations. You have the generation 1960, 1970, 1980, and they are just leaving the age that they can children. Very large generation. And the new generations get much fewer children, but we still have in Bangladesh a very large population between, let's say, 30 and 60. And that's why they are not in decline, but they will be in decline. In just one more decade or one and a half decade, they will be in decline.
All right. I guess at the core of my question is, couldn't this replacement level vary per country, this 2.1?
Oh, that's the point.
That's my main point.
I shall even naar Jeroen toe.
Well, maybe I can try it like this. The mortality rate of infants is dropping very fast as well. So that's one of the main points of the work of Hans Rosling, is that we still associate third world countries with high mortality, infant mortality rates. And with the improving healthcare, not only birth rates are dropping, but mortality rates are dropping quite fast as well. So there will be some variation, but it might be less than you assume.
As a matter of fact, in Holland we used to have, up until 10 years ago, a pretty bad mortality rate in newborns. And it has caused a change in the way we wanted to do something about it. And they're still working on that, because you would not expect from Holland, which we consider a very, well, high elevated country, to have this kind of numbers. So this really was a problem, and little people know that.
The problem, or it's not a problem, the circumstance is that these are very broad lines, these figures. If you have a close look by city, by region, by country, there's always more grey between black and white, of course. But what Rosling is doing is making headlines between 1960 and 2015. And that's quite intriguing. Let me end this small comparison by the last countries, Taiwan and Niger. Taiwan 6.14 in 1960, and now the lowest fertility rate in the world, 1.11. Lowest, and it's sometimes it's Singapore, sometimes it's Taiwan. But I wonder, why should mainland China want to invade Taiwan? They just have to wait and then it's empty. But I made that joke to myself last week when I was preparing this presentation, but immediately I thought, why should China want to invade Taiwan? Well, maybe it has something to do with declining population, threat of declining population in China itself. Dictators are in love with their own power, and how more people they can boss, how more they like it. So Orban in Hungary, Putin in Russia, and Xi Jinping in China. They have some kind of outward aggression. Might it be some kind of compensation for their declining population? For that they cannot inspire their population for a big national life. So it might have some cruel political impacts. Not in our sort of countries. The democratic countries say, well, it's the matter of the parents, how many children they want to have, not a matter of the state. But it's not a declining population is not only a blessing, it's also a new world, an uncertain world. And how will political power react to that?